Evan Perez is out front in Washington. And Evan, the special counsel making these changes, emphasizing this unofficial nature, but keeping those 4 charges that carry such a serious level of penalty if convicted, and surprised Trump with this filing today.
That's right, Aaron. And look, I mean, one of the things that the special counsel has been doing these last few weeks has been going through line by line the original 45-page indictment and looking through the evidence they had to try to see what could support these 4 counts. And they arrived at the same thing. What they did, a lot of this is editing, as you pointed out in this new indictment, which, by the way, they presented to a grand jury, a brand new grand jury, one that had not heard the previous evidence. They made sure they went to a new grand jury to be able to say that this is not tainted by the previous evidence. But one of the things that they do here is that they've removed all references to the Justice Department and Justice Department official Jeffrey Clark. He is, you remember, the former official who Donald Trump at one point tried to appoint as Attorney General in order to help bolster his claims of vote fraud. That is gone. Also gone is some of these conversations with Mark Meadows. Again, someone who is very close to the former president. He's a close aide. And under the terms of the Supreme Court ruling, that is not evidence that they could use in court. So a lot of that stuff is now gone. Now, one of the big surprises in here, you will see a lot of evidence about Mike Pence. And one of the things that you see in the editing of this new indictment is the references to him as Senate president, his ceremonial role to certify the vote on January 6th. And that, you see, is helps to bolster a couple of these counts here, which are related to the former president's role in trying to impede an official proceeding. So what the first thing now that happens after this, Aaron, is next week, a test before Judge Tanya Chutkan. She's going to hold a hearing, and we'll see whether any of this new editing of this new indictment passes a test with her.
All right,
Aaron?
And that is obviously going to be crucial. Evan, thank you. I want to go to Phil Mattingly now, because, Phil, you've covered Trump so extensively. There were many who thought this might go away forever or in large part, but this is a surprise filing, and the 4 key charges are still there that would carry a combined 55 years in maximum prison time if someone were to be convicted of them. So this surprises Trump today. What are you learning about how he found out, and what he's doing right now?
Yeah, Aaron, surprised the legal team, also surprised the senior political team around the former president. And what's interesting, to your point, there'd kind of been a sense in being on the campaign trail with him last week, especially, that this was kind of in the rear view. It was not a focal point as it had been for so many months leading up to the general election of any of his campaign speeches. He would mention it in passing sometimes, particularly the Florida case that had been dismissed, Jack Smith's classified documents case. But it was not central, despite the fact his rally goers, his supporters, were very much behind him on this issue. That seems like it's likely to change in the weeks ahead. As one Trump advisor, close associate, told me, we have a playbook for this. It's not necessarily a playbook they wanted to discover, but it's certainly one they found to be quite effective during the Republican primary, when the former president steamrolled his Republican opponents and really kind of found himself at the height of power within the Republican Party, despite this being the 3rd time he has been the nominee. And we've already seen some of that playbook roll out. You saw the former president respond on social media at length at one point, and then a stream of responses since then. We've also seen the campaign already blast out a fundraising request that says, I will, quote, never surrender. Very similar language to what we saw throughout his legal issues earlier in the year. And that's important right now, particularly given his current opponent has raised more than $500 million since Joe Biden dropped out of the race. Now, I should note the former president says that this is something that's being driven by the Vice President Kamala Harris. There's no evidence of that, just as there was never any evidence that Joe Biden was driving these cases. But once again, it is similar language, similar framing, and a similar effort to elevate something that for most politicians would be a significant problem. The real question going forward, this will likely be a focal point of some of those campaign trail remarks in the weeks ahead. Will he make appearances at the courthouse? Will the rest of the playbook roll out as it had before? That's an open question, but certainly we've seen a lot of this before.
We certainly have, and it'll be amazing to see if we really do get some visibility on how successful the fundraising is, because as you pointed, it has been before, and it was a real indicator of sort of his rise and resurgence, whether that actually is still the case. All right, Phil, thank you very much. And so let's go to Ty Cobb now, former Trump White House lawyer. Ty, you've had a chance to read through these 36 pages, obviously slimmed down just a little bit, not much, 9 pages fewer than the original indictment filed last year. keeping those 4 key charges and editing, emphasizing that it is in a personal, private capacity under which Smith has the authority to make this indictment. Did he do it? Does this indictment make a clean-cut case that the acts were personal?
I think it does. I think, some of the editing that you highlighted in your intro is spot on, emphasizing the private nature of many of these acts, the private funding of the speech at the before the Capitol intrusion, Pence's ceremonial role, the non-governmental roles of the co-conspirators, which they can now say categorically, and now that Jeffrey Clark is out, because he was the only government official who was actually in the original indictment. He's no longer in this indictment. So all the co-conspirators were acting in their private capacity. I think this threads the needle. If I'm Trump's lawyers, and I'm surprised, I'm scratching my head at that, because this was the reasonable approach to take. You no reason to go through a series of hearings before Judge Chutkan and force the task of editing the indictment on her when you can put forward a forceful case like this
and do the work for her. All right. So then what happens? She gets this case, as Evan was laying out, next week. What happens then? And I guess then does it eventually just go back to the Supreme Court? But is this fast or slow from here?
So it'll be slow from here, not merely because of the superseding indictment. Whatever the indictment was going to look like after it went through whatever hearings the Judge Chutkan is going to have, and she still will have a hearing on the adequacy of this indictment. It does have, there is a interlocutory appeal available, at least as I read the Supreme Court decision. And that doesn't mean the Supreme Court has to take it if the D.C. Circuit acts before and they're content with whatever they do. But this hasn't been on course to go before the election for months. This was never going. That was never going to happen. But as you point out, this is a very forceful document. It's pared down. Every sentence is, crisply worded. It's a tight narrative. You can't read this and not understand the crimes that Trump actually committed. And as you pointed out, 55 years is exposure. That he's not going to get 55 years, but he'll get 6 to 9 on this.
So can I ask you about that? 6. Okay, so
Sure.
You think he could get 6 to 9, and obviously I'd put out 55 just to so people understand the seriousness of these charges. But even 6 to 9, for someone his age, it's very significant. You know him well. What do you think happens from here?
Oh, he won't take this seriously until the final gavel comes down and the jurors come back and say guilty, and he actually gets sentenced. But this will be a lot of delaying tactics by his lawyers. They've already said it's the same indictment. Clearly, it's not. They've already said that this will be dismissed, should be dismissed immediately. It won't be dismissed immediately. And I think the people that view this as a rescue or as some retreat by Smith read this completely wrong. This is what happens in the ordinary course. If the Supreme Court takes an action that eliminates an approach that was previously available, the prudent thing to do is to change course. The facts haven't changed, and as you pointed out, the charges haven't changed. They're the same charges, and they're easily proved.
Right, and of course, we should emphasize, as Evan did, it was a different grand jury. So there was no bias or prejudice by them on what they were looking at. A new group of people looked at a new indictment, and they came to a very clear conclusion that it was that it should go ahead. All right, Ty, thank you.